All right, welcome back. We are knocking out these CRUD things. We've got read done, we've got create done. We're going to do the D for delete, and it's going to be pretty straightforward, right? So we're going to make a delete quote method. To delete a quote, the only thing you need is the entity key. So like, what is the entity key, which is just a string that you need to delete. And we're going to call it from the appropriate place, and that's going to be it, right? So go ahead and go back into your app. And what I want to do is I kind of like to copy other things, right? So I'm just going to copy the insert quote method. I guess I could clean it up a little bit here. And I'm going to paste it down here, and I'm just going to start making changes, right? So the first thing I want to do is instead of insert quote, I want to say delete quote. Instead of receiving a GTL movie quote, I'm just going to receive an entity key to delete. And an entity key is an NS string, so that's all I want to do there. As for the query, I want to do a movie quote. I'm just going to put a space there and then do a control space. Delete with entity key to delete. Looks lovely. Clean up the rest of that line. Localhost testing, that bug only exists for post request. So it's not an issue on GET request. It's not an issue on this delete. So I don't have to do any hackery, right? Show my spinner, execute the query, stop the spinner when I'm done. If there's an error, I want to show that error, and then I'll have a return statement. And then the question is, what do you want to do with the successful response? It turns out that I want to do nothing with the successful response. I'm sending this off to the back end, and he does send me things back. Like he gives me something back that says deleted. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show an error if there's a problem, and I'm going to do nothing on success because I'm actually going to delete the quotes before I even fire this thing. So if it's an error, I'll show it, but if it's success, I'm just going to do nothing. So it's actually a very easy method for delete quote. We do have to call it. I remember to call it this time. So I'm going to go to commit editing style. This is where we actually delete things. And so in this area, in commit editing style, this is where we've got a quote that we want to delete. So what I want to do is I want to actually call that method with the entity key. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get the quote first. So I'll say quote to delete, and that's equal to movie quotes index path.row. And then what I want to do is I want to call that method. It turns out I'm not in a closure. Seems like I'm in closures more often than not. And I've got a quote to delete, and he has an entity key. By the way, you could spend all kinds of time looking at the generated code, right? So, like, I mean, in the last video lecture, we kind of just glossed over, what does insert object return? It returns a movie quote. What does this return? It also returns a movie quote, and you pass it a string, which is an entity key. So the things that I'm doing, I learned, from looking at the documentation on what did this thing do, right? So that's just kind of how you learn these things. But I mean, for this, you can see what I'm doing here. So we're just getting the quote from the array. We're taking its entity key. We're sending that to the back end. And then immediately after I send it to the back end, I just do the remove here instantly, right? So it feels really snappy to a user. So let's just go ahead and run it again. I've got a couple quotes on here that I wanted rid of anyway. I click on edit just like before. I hit delete, and those things seem fine. Everything's going good. If I go to my back end, so my local host, I do a refresh over here. You can see I cleaned him right up. If you switch it over to the deployed version, so localhost testing false, and run it on the deployed version, I've got at least somebody over here I wanted to clean up. So second attempt, so I don't want that on my pretty back end. Delete you. And so that's done. And then if I go to my deployed version, here's the second attempt. If I do a refresh, it goes away. Cool, so that's delete. To be honest, it's pretty easy, right? I mean, it's just these things we've already done before. It's just a method that we haven't called before. And to be honest, it's really easy because you don't have to do anything with the response, right? So it's kind of like create was fairly easy. It had that little hacky thing. Read was kind of hard because I had the new page token. Delete was trivially easy. And next time we'll do update. All right, that's it. See you next time. Bye.